there's a big FUD around stablecoins replacing XRP.
Yeah.
And this is complete FUD. 95% of the tokenization that's going to happen on the XRP Ledger that you would not see right now is happening on the CBDC, the private ledgers.
Next generation monetary and financial systems take shape based on a tokenized unified ledger. All of this is taking place in 2 months in terms of what's happening with the DTCC. You've probably heard me mention Uphold before, and there's a reason I keep talking about them. Uphold makes it incredibly easy to bridge the gap between your portfolio and the real world. This has not been done before. Their Uphold Debit Card is the best example of that. It lets you spend your crypto or your cash anywhere Visa is accepted, all while earning 4% back in XRP on every purchase. It's the easiest way to stack rewards on your daily spending. Download the Uphold app for more and get started. Welcome back into it. Today, we're going to be diving into something that you guys are interested in. That is the idea of where stablecoins are heading and what that means for XRP, but also what it might mean for the rest of crypto. And we're going to jump into it with Jesse from Apex Crypto Consulting. So it's going to be a good one. Don't miss it today. I think you guys are going to find something pretty interesting. Before we get going, though, I want to share something with you guys that you may not be aware of, and that is that we have launched a new alternative assets channel out there, and it's after one of my passions, which is automotive. Yeah, that's right. I do have investment strategy around buying high net worth cars, but we also talk about gold, crypto, and some other things in terms of alternative assets out there. So it's not always just crypto. But you guys can visit the channel. It's over on Velocity Assets. Just search that in my name. You'll find it right there. Very easy to get going. Hey, listen, I want to get into it today with Jesse, and he has been so kind to come in and talk to us about maybe the FUD that's been happening out there in the market, not only around XRP, but in general, I think around what Ripple is dealing with. So I want to bring Jesse in from Apex Crypto Insights. How are you, Jesse? How's things going?
I'm doing great, Paul. It's an honor to be on your show, as always.
Nice to see you, man.
Nice to see you too, man. How are you?
Well, it's been a little crazy. You go all in on clarity, then you see what's happening under the hood, then you're all out on clarity, then, they decide to do a meeting, then they're not doing a meeting, then, then they say, okay, no, we're going to have a bigger meeting, and, which is where we are right now. So you've got a couple of things happening right now this week. Of course, the biggest news of the week is this White House meeting right here. And that is going to be happening today as we record this. You guys will probably see this tomorrow on Edit. But Trump is meeting with top crypto executives. We will see the chair of the SEC, Paul Atkins, Michael Selig in the room. Garlinghouse is on the list, along with a handful of others, including Robinhood, Coinbase, Chainlink. It is going to be a star-studded meeting. My question to you, Jesse, what are they going to talk about?
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, because you don't have clarity to talk about. All you can do is complain about that with the Senate and the House. So what would they be talking about?
When are we going to flip the switch on XRP or no?
There you go. Okay.
No, I don't know. It's unreal. I mean, the drama around this, it's very simple. I don't know if you saw you must have played it too, Loomis, that she was explaining all the politics and how.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anybody, but I think to me, the Democrats were the big problem there. I mean, when I listen to Loomis, what she explains about what they did to try to bring the Clarity Act to pass, oh my goodness. And so I don't know what they're going to talk about. Like, it's unreal. What is there to talk about? Just pass.
I can only assume that the administration is trying to figure out what they can get from the industry as a negotiating tactic to help offset what the White House is going to have to negotiate around ethics. So it's very possible they could be looking for something that would open up an opportunity for negotiation around ethics. But I think it still is going to boil down to ethics, even though there has been a lot of an agreement with ethics, one of the strongest ethics clauses that we've ever seen on a White House and administration. So maybe that's what it is, or possibly could they be looking at aligning the industry with the SEC and the CFTC in case clarity doesn't pass? Because you've got both Atkins and the CFTC there as well. So might be that case.
Yeah, it's quite the drama, I'll tell you. Because Senator Loomis said that they gave them exactly what they were asking for in regards to Trump. She said, Trump agreed to everything. Then they added something else and then something else. And they did this for like 9 months, I think. She said, like, they've got everything on a gold platter. And then last minute, said, we can't do it because of this and that. So I don't, I'll never be able to figure that one out.
Well, and you had the SEC's new rules on, well, I guess their proposed new rules on where crypto is heading that just came out this morning. And part of that is regulation that is really geared around a couple of issues. And one of the things, let me bring it up on screen here so everybody can kind of see the proposal. And here we go. Let's bring it up right here. So this is the one that they just dropped, and it's in reference to the proposed rules that would create a tailored security offering regime for certain investment contracts involving crypto assets. What it boiled down to was a few key things. In my opinion, it really started to put more constraints on the industry. The way it's set up in regards to how new projects would come to light. And what it boiled down to was, I think it was a $5 million almost innovation, get out of jail free card, which is nothing, for any new innovator. And then it was like 75 million was the potential for a company over a 5-year period. So again, these are very limited, and it really put a lot of restrictions on the idea of what would be a security, which would most likely include a lot of assets that are out there right now outside of what has been deemed not a security, including XRP. So the way it is right now, and just to be clear for everybody, this was a proposal. It came out this morning. My assumption is they're probably going to talk about it in today's meeting. That's why they announced it. And it's likely that it's going to be changed. So the proposed rule includes 2 exemptions. The registration requirement of, and this is going all the way back to the 1933 Act, that was tailored specifically for certain investment contracts involving crypto assets. So the idea is the first one-time exemption that would permit offerings up to 5 million during the first 4-year period. And then the second exemption would permit offerings up to 75 million during each 12-month period. But under both exemptions, the issuers would be required to make certain principle-based narrative disclosures available to their investors. So I don't know what that means, but I'm assuming that means it's almost like a full disclosure statement. And the issuers under the second exemption would be required to provide financial statements and be subject to ongoing reporting requirements. To me, that is not an open network. So it definitely would start to attack, I think, a lot of crypto in general. So that's just the headline. I don't want to bore everybody with what that means, because what it boils down to, Jesse, is that it looks to me like they're expecting clarity not going through, because they're starting to line this up.
Yeah, it's quite possible, and that's not the best clarity. And I'm wondering, Paul, what are your thoughts? Is somebody said that if the SEC passed something like that, a new administration could potentially reverse it.
For sure.
Is that correct? It can.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
Because those are just rules. You just have to go in and reset the bureaucrat that leads the SEC and put another Gensler in there, and you could pretty much write up anything you want that would be in alignment with what right now the Genius Act is doing, because clarity would not be there to even look at least not yet. Or the clarity we may see may be completely different than what's been written so far, at least in the text that we've had a chance to review. So I don't know. It's a very interesting situation right now that is flowing. And I think it's a very free-flowing situation that most likely will put more pressure on crypto as an industry here in the United States.
That's not good. If that doesn't pass, it's not good for the U.S. at all.
Yeah.
At all. Yeah. No.
What do you think when you look at the issue of what Selig is doing, because he appointed a lot of crypto top flight guys to this innovation advisory panel. I mean, is this the CFTC trying to get into at least some sort of alignment with the industry itself, or do you feel like they're just out trying to do discovery, trying to figure out what these companies are really up to?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because like the CFTC is more aligned with this administration, right? Because they were chosen by Trump, my understanding,
Yep.
right? So you would think that they want rules of the road, but I mean, God knows, because if you're not going to pass the Clarity Act, it's this. What's the point? I mean, it's still beneficial, it's good, but if you're not going to pass the Clarity Act, I mean, it's like it's like getting choosing a skateboard instead of choosing that nice Porsche you had on your channel there, right? So it's like, what's the point? Like, you're going to modify that skateboard, like.
Well, the problem I think that really it boils down to is what is going to happen around the issue of innovation. To me, because I think you already see the banks pushing so hard against this. I think really so they can catch up on the innovation side. Outside of tokenized securities, which is starting to roll out now, DTCC is going to be live here in a couple of months. That, of course, is going to start changing things. You've already got a handful of non-security assets that have been deemed that way by courts now, including XRP. And then you have stablecoin usage, which is another issue that I think we're still faced with. This was Jake's tweet about that I thought was interesting, that I wanted to get your opinion on. And his statement was this right here: every bank launching a stablecoin, so we'll probably just see a JPM, et cetera, is essentially creating another currency that needs to talk to every other currency. That's not competition for XRP. It's the problem that XRP was really designed for, which is that ability to kind of translate between the two. So the banks are basically doing Ripple's marketing for them. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree 100%. There's a big misconception right now. There's a big FUD around stablecoins replacing XRP.
Yeah.
And this is complete FUD. This is incorrect. And I think, for example, when you put these announcements out, they say, oh, we're going to use this stablecoin for payments, and we're going to use stablecoins for settlement. But they're never talked. So the average person that hasn't spent years researching Ripple is going to see they're using stablecoins for settlement. And sometimes they'll even say in cross-border. But when they go cross-border, cross-asset, they're not saying what is that asset, what is that bridge asset allowing for the cross-border, right? Stable coins do not change anything at all for XRP. Like, it doesn't replace the need for Nostro-Vostro accounts, counterparty risk in using Nostro-Vostro accounts, on-demand liquidity, the Triffin's dilemma. What they've been trying to fix, and they've been working on 30 years to fix with XRP and Ripple, which is what they tried to do with the special drawing rights in 1968. Stablecoins don't fix that at all. They don't change anything. All you're doing is you're taking the asset, the ownership of the asset, and you're putting it in a blockchain. That's it.
Yep.
You might get a bit more efficiency, but when you're going from one asset to another, when you're going from tokenized peso to tokenized US dollar or whatever, you need a purposely built bridge asset. And the only ones that are purposely built for that, which will ever have the liquidity as well, are XLM and XRP.
Yeah.
And everything else is FUD.
Well, if you look at this statement right here, and I think this kind of sums it up, and it's a good point. Stablecoin issuers, they're biased assets. Biased assets can't be a bridge asset on a neutral, censorship-resistant public blockchain. So, not saying that Ripple would be in this case, but they would have to follow U.S. courts if, the EU, Canada, Australia said, one of the Five Eyes came in and said, hey, listen, we think these guys are bad guys. I need you to go back and claw back RLUSD, which has been done at Tether's level. It's been done at USDC for Circle, and it will eventually be done on RLUSD. This is where XRP is neutral, no counterparty, no jurisdiction. This is why I think you're going to see nation states looking at this to be able to circumvent the issue of clawback potential sanctions. Or let's just assume you don't like what the guy in El Salvador is doing, but he's using something that is a leverage in this kind of scenario. So it completely changes the game, I think, globally.
This is the level playing field that they've been talking about.
Yeah.
President Trump talked about it. He said, he said, I've been complaining about devaluation of currency of China for a long time.
Right.
And I said, I think soon we'll all be, sooner than most people think, we'll all be on a level playing field, because he said that's the only way you can compete with trade. And we've seen Mark Carney, when he was talking about a new hegemonic currency that would help the US dollar as a supplementary reserve asset. He talked about the level playing field. I've done numerous deep dives on that. The level playing field is the XRP Ledger. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's allowing every nation to do their own monetary policy. They're not forced to hold the currency of another nation, in this case right now the US dollar, because it's the most liquid one. And it allows them to do whatever they want. And then when they want to settle cross border, they just use XRP. It fixes the Triffin's dilemma, which is what they tried to fix in 1968 with the IMF, and they failed. And this is what they're redoing. And I could go on a little rant there if you want, but it's all about fixing the Triffin's dilemma at the core. And it's the idea that you cannot have a global reserve currency cannot be tied to a national currency. You cannot have a national currency serve as a global reserve currency, which every country is forced to hold to do their trade, because that country has to continuously run trade deficits, and that undermines the confidence of that currency long term. And no country wants to be forced to hold the currency of a nation that can continuously running trade deficits and devaluing the currency.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the Triffin's dilemma, identified by Robert Triffin in the 1960s. And they tried to fix this with the IMF, the special drawing rights in the IMF in 1968. Yep. But it failed because at the time they only gave it to central banks. They didn't give it to corporates and fintechs and institutions and retailers to get the use cases needed to get the liquidity. And so it failed. Like, central banks just kept kind of using the US dollar instead of switching to the ESDR, because the US dollar was more liquid, more accessible and liquid. So it failed. And that's why in 1988, you see the Rising Phoenix article. Everybody talks about the front page of the Rising Phoenix Economist magazine saying, get ready for a new world currency. But nobody ever talks about the article, because the article said that we have new technologies that will allow to create a new world currency, and it will be a supplementary reserve asset to the US dollar, and it will help with global trade, liquidity, and FX. And I'm almost done my rant. And it says, and the IMF would be the best institution to manage this new world currency because of its experience with the SDR. So they tried to do the SDR in 1968. Yeah. It failed. In 1980s, let's say, they realized we've got to come up with something else. And then that article comes out. And the article says that the way they're going to accomplish this, and this new world currency will come out in about 30 years. So from 1988 to 2018, it'll come in the forefront, which is when we see RippleNet starting to get adoption. But they said the way they're going to accomplish this is they're going to relentlessly integrate it into everything. Because if you want the use cases to get the liquidity, you need to relentlessly integrate in everything. And then again, and then the year after is when David Schwartz, when he was working for the three-letter agency, that's when he gets the patent on distributed computer systems, which is technically DLT patent.
Exactly. Okay, so I want to argue, and I'm not arguing with you, but I'm just arguing the point.
Yeah.
And this is coming in from Zach Rines, and I know you've done some videos on this guy. He's one of the more awesome fudders out there of XRP. But he says right here, this is the retail thesis of XRP, that it's going to become a global reserve currency, to the point that you were just getting at. And what he's talking about further down here, which I am a bit concerned about, and they'll argue the goal is not for XRP to become the global reserve currency, but to fulfill the bridge currency role. That's the point that we're getting at. They also believe that XRP Ledger will become the dominant chain for tokenized real-world assets. Now, this is a statement that he is somewhat right on this, because there has not been a lot of growth on the XRP Ledger. We have done a pretty good deep dive on where the growth is actually coming from. And it is not, in terms of RWA, it has not necessarily been on the XRP Ledger. What do you think it's going to take for the XRP Ledger to truly make its way into real world assets, which I think would at least counteract his alternative that this is not necessarily a global reserve currency?
Well, okay.
Or a bridge currency.
Yeah, a few things here. So by becoming the #1 bridge currency in the world, you are becoming the global reserve currency. You're becoming that dominant currency when you're becoming the new global reserve currency, the new bridge currency for the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Every single asset is going through you anytime you're going from one asset to another. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and he's the #1 fudder on planet Earth. He's awesome fudder. He's an awesome. I like the way you put it. So right here, where he says that they also believe XRPL will become the dominant chain for tokenized real estate.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be. This is what these guys don't understand. It technically doesn't need to be, because the XRP ledger tied with the interledger protocol, right? They can tokenize on every other blockchain, but when you want to go from one type of asset to another via the interledger protocol in XRP, it has to find the best path, and it will resort to the XRP ledger because of the way the interledger protocol in XRP is built. Because the XRP ledger has a built-in decentralized exchange, order books, the most advanced AMMs on planet Earth, multi-path finding, multi-hop, path finding and multi-hop. RippleNet is KYC, AML, fully compliant globally. It also has a global rulebook that all the banks sign up to, which the DTC helped them create, right? So my point is, it will route through XRP Ledger for that liquidity anytime it wants to go from one type of asset to another, regardless if it's tokenized, regardless of where the tokenization happened. The XRP Ledger doesn't have to have the most tokenization on it for the XRP Ledger to be used for all the different assets that are being tokenized all over the world.
Okay, so Jesse, let me stop you there for a second. So why, and this is a question I ask all the time to everyone, and I've yet to really get some form of answer that I can live with, and that is, we are now nearing, first of all, the lawsuit's over. We now know that XRP is not a security, and we know most likely that there's going to be some sort of regulatory framework that's put in place. So you would think, if you were Ripple, you would start rolling this out. So why are we not seeing, because this is his statement, says all this is compounded by conspiracy theories about secret banking cartels, all that colluding with XRP standard. So why have we not seen that in the market yet? Because if in fact it is the best solution, wouldn't they just want to do it?
Paul, I forgot something, and you're going to like this one. You're going to sleep better. Okay. You're going to sleep a lot better after this one. Everybody watching too should be sleeping better. 95% of the tokenization that's going to happen on the XRP Ledger that you would not see right now is happening on the CBDC, the private ledgers, which will touch the XRP, the public ledger. And I want to explain that, because these professional fudders will come back and say, oh, see, it's on the private ledger. It's not going to touch a public XRP ledger, even though it says it right on Ripple website. So what's happening right now, and you can't get more tokenization than this, my friend, on the XRP ledger. This is right on Ripple's website. James Wallace, the head of CBDC relations for Ripple, has explained this in videos numerous times. I've done numerous deep dives on this. Central banks are building CBDCs on private versions of the public XRP ledger. So these are carbon copy clones of the public XRP ledger, because a central bank needs its privacy, which means we wouldn't see it. This fudder, he would not be able to see it. Nobody can see it.
Well, that's exactly. And that is a problem, I think, that everybody understands, because even Ethereum does not have a private layer yet, and it's still trying to work on that. This is an issue that's facing all of crypto for institutional to really make adoption curves, and especially central banks getting to the point where privacy is going to be paramount on all of this.
Yeah, but my point is, what I really want people to understand here and get is that, and yeah, I'll bite my tongue there. I'll bite my tongue there. So central bank digital currencies, central banks have what are called RTGS, real-time gross settlements. The central bank is the settlement system for the nation. Okay? And so the CBDC is your first layer of money. It's the trunk of the tree, the CBDC. And then the tokenization is happening on top of the CBDCs. Anytime you're going to tokenize everything with the new rules coming and everything, which is coming from the BIS, which is the central banks for all central banks, which he would not have looked at, of course. They have to tokenize, everything being tokenized has to be backed by CBDCs. So right on Ripple website, it says that central banks are building their CBDCs on private ledgers, which are carbon copied clones of the XRP ledger. This allows the central banks to have all the same mechanisms and tools that the public XRP ledger has, because it's a carbon copy clone. And then the tokenization, tokenized deposits, and stablecoins are being tokenized on top of that, especially tokenized deposits, are being backed by the CBDC.
Yeah.
So you can't get more tokenization than this. This is what I want people to understand. A CBDC is a tokenized asset, and the CBDC is the infrastructure for the nation. So the fact that central banks are tokenizing, creating their CBDCs, which is a tokenized asset, like I said, the fact that they're creating their CBDCs, because Ripple's the only platform, the only tech company or distributed ledger that has, from what I understand, a CBDC platform where central banks are launching their CBDCs like a joke. It's very easy. You might have HBAR and XLM that might have a few CBDCs, but the main one that's 95% of CBDCs are being built on right now is the XRP Ledger. And this is 10,000 times more tokenization on the XRP Ledger than this guy could ever dream of or could ever foot.
Okay, so why? Okay, so my argument, and I'll show this on screen, to also kind of reiterate just why we're seeing these kinds of narratives. So this is DEX volume on XRP Ledger. And as you'll notice here, TVL is continuing to slide downward. Now, that could be market pressures. It could be all sorts of things that are more driven around market than anything else. But if you look at the real world assets, especially when you look at RLUSD and the growth, you would look at this chart and say, okay, RLUSD is growing, but there was something that happened right back here in August, which was when they unlocked, $1 billion in tokens. So 700 million goes back into escrow, and then 300 million I thought would go into acquisition, somewhere like that. But what I'm looking at, I'm not saying that this is what happened, but it's a very unusual note. You'll notice that's 1.4, and then all of a sudden 1.7. That's 300 million in August during this period of time in which these unlocks were occurring. So is this Ripple propping up RLUSD, and why would they do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's very interesting, but I'm not sure what happened there. But it's a very, very good thing.
This was some of the research that our team has been just diving into, really trying to track down exactly the point that some of these fudders are making constantly around what could be happening, in the next few, months, maybe even. I mean, we could be that close. Jim Rickards talks about it right here. Let me kind of show you his tweet. And he says this. People are saying, not his idea of a reliable source, but he says, hey, that said, even the IMF needs devs, and I'm sure Ripple has some good ones. That doesn't mean that XRP will be a reserve asset. More likely, it's an electronic ESDR. So first of all, for those who don't know what that is, explain it. And why is Jim right, or what's his positioning here?
Yeah, I like Jim. I think I'm just suspecting here that he might be wording it that way. That doesn't mean XRP will be a reserve asset. I think he could be just wording it that way because he has to be careful, maybe, because the interledger documents show that their goal is to make it a new world currency, global reserve asset, right? And then I can't remember who it was. Was it somebody at Ripple said our goal is to make it as liquid as any G20 nation? Mm-hmm. So, and Jim Rickard, let me see here. Yeah, so I'm not sure why he's wording it like that. I mean, because you technically don't have to hold it in reserves. You could just use it, which will still create the demand. But I have documents coming from OMFIF. I did numerous I probably did like 20 deep dives on IMF and the SDR and XRP. And it is the new ESDR, electronic special drawing rights, also known as a digital SDR. Yeah. And OMFIF, which is a major think tank for central banks and global economy and everything, they showed how ESDR, a new ESDR for cross-border payments, could be used between CBDCs. You would go from CBDC A to ESDR to CBDC B in seconds. Describes
was that recent? Was that recent data coming out of OMFIF?
Yeah, right. Interledger protocol.
Now this was in October of 2019.
Yeah, but that to me, that just shows you how long this has been planned.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, okay. So Jesse, but you have to consider that is literally 6 years ago. Okay.
Yep.
There has been so much advancement in stable coins that have moved at the speed of sound, really, in the last 36 months.
Yeah.
That I think that's where a lot of argument would come into, that even in the Chainlink crowd, you know, in terms of setting up what oracles do, would kind of go in that point. That's my question, is why we haven't seen more data on this come out recently.
Data on which part, sorry?
Like in reference to what Omphif is talking about.
Yeah, well, because the fudders are not taking time to really research. They think that we're out to lunch because they haven't done the research on how long this has been planned and why are all the nations in the world trying to fix the Triffin's dilemma and why they benefit from having a neutral bridge currency.
Yeah.
And so right here, if you look,
central banks could make use of ESDR issuing would be in effect a universal central bank digital currency for cross-border transactions.
Yeah, a universal central bank digital currency for cross-border. And right here, the other paragraph here, it talks about going from currency A to currency B via the ESDR. And then right after it says, over time, more central banks could join and a multilateral institution such as the IMF could take over management of the ESDR.
ESDR, yeah.
Isn't that interesting? So the IMF is taking over management, Paul, of the ESDR after it gets the adoption. That means the IMF is not building this ESDR right now. Somebody else is doing the work for them. And then after it gets better, Paul, because right before or after, it says that if a private company was to issue it, it would be better because it would get faster global adoption, and then the IMF could take it over. Isn't that interesting?
Well, I mean, it is interesting. But I look at, if you plug that into, and I think you did, you had a statement on Grok. It said, can you find me anywhere where any of the major financial institutions or global regulators? Let me bring this up on screen for everybody to look at on the research. I love doing these episodes with you because it's like a working group.
I appreciate it. Oh, I'm so honored to be. I just love coming on your show, Paul. Talking with you.
All right. So your question was straightforward. It was, find anywhere major financial institutions, global regulators such as central banks, the IMF, and the Financial Stability Board, or the BIS, that have talked about a level playing field. And this was the point it came back on. Yes, major institutions, BIS, have been going around this, around course level of playing field. This goes back to the point we were making earlier. And then it gave some good key examples from the BIS as well as the FSI. That was back in 2021. This was in January of 2018. But again, it goes back to my point of, why have we not seen this other than here when John Schindler, you and I have talked about this right here, it was this 2026 keynote that he talked about.
Well, Mark Carney talked about a level playing field. Donald Trump, even the new, what's this guy? I forget his name. The head of...
There's Carney right there. There it is, multipolarity. And this was, again, this was back in pre-Carney. Isn't it interesting that Carney was talking about this in 2019?
Yeah.
And he is now basically your
that was before his masters sent him here to Canada to destroy our country.
To invade your country.
Yeah, pretty much.
Synthetic hegemonic currency is too futuristic. So they knew that it was going to take a while for this to really.
They always say it like that, Paul. It's always in like, oh, it's conceptual, could take a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's always the way they talk because they have to talk that way. But they've been working on this for over 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And so if you go in Grok AI and you say, hey, tell me, because I did that, I said, tell me all the major organizations that have talked about trying to fix the Triffin's dilemma. That have been doing research papers on it, discussions on how to fix the Triffin's dilemma, that this is a major problem and we need to fix it. And you ask the AI, it'll tell you the BIS, which is central banks for all central banks. People have to understand it's the central banks for all central banks. The IMF, the G20, the G30, the G7, the Triffin's Dilemma Institute. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Like they've been trying to fix the Triffin's dilemma, which is you need a neutral bridge currency. You cannot have national currency tied to a specific nation serve as a global liquidity layer, because what happens is to supply the liquidity, that country has to keep printing and running trade deficits. But if it tries to slow down, then it pulls back the liquidity from the system. So you're damn if you do, damn if you don't. And this is what they've been trying to fix. And this is what these fudders don't understand.
Well, it is what they're trying to fix. And it does put the entire globe in a reset. And if you just look at all the things that have been happening, Jesse, I mean, you look at the implementation of what's happening in Japan, you look at the implementation of what's happening in the Middle East, which most likely will start to put even more pressure on the petrodollar. And then China, is all centering around a shift in where these financial systems are going to be going. And this statement right here from the BIS, I thought was intriguing. I'll share this with everybody so they can kind of keep up here on the notes. Next generation monetary and financial systems take shape based on a tokenized unified ledger.
Yeah, on a tokenized unified ledger.
Yeah.
And I've proven
that was back in June of 25, so just last year.
Exactly, right?
Yep.
And I've proven in my deep dives that the regulated liability network, which used to be called the regulated Internet of Value, but
Yep.
they changed the name real quick because everybody knows Ripple is tied to the Internet of Value. The regulated liability network, the regulated Internet of Value, the unified ledger, the shared ledger concept. I've clearly proven in my deep dives, this is all the XRP ledger. And then in the BIS diagrams, you see the unified ledger being connected, unified ledger 1 being connected to unified ledger 2 via the interledger protocol. These are your CBDCs. I just want to add one more thing, Paul. So your XRP ledger is the main unified ledger, but then the CBDCs that are being built on private versions of the public XRP ledger, these are your unified ledgers, plural. And that's why you see the BIS diagrams connecting them via the interledger protocol. The same way the Hyperledger document showed the Internet of Value, showing all the central banks building on the XRP ledger, and it showed how every central bank has what are called real-time gross settlement systems.
Yeah, it sure does have a lot of friendliness to what Ripple has been doing, so in general, even to the point of this statement right here by Hong Song Shin. This is the economic advisor to the monetary and economic department there. And he said that the tokenization of deposits and central bank money means that both the primary means of payment as well as settlement function of the central bank money can be integrated seamlessly on the same programmable platform that has the potential to transform security markets and application of corresponding coarsely around special promising. So he's very promising. So he knows it's there. This is one of the smarter guys out there in terms of where the BIS is set up for. But again, it always boils back down to why has it not started yet?
Yeah. The main thing, again, like the reason we're not seeing the actual amount of tokenization that's really technically happening around the XRP ledger is because the CBDCs are being built on private versions of the public XRP ledger. And this is what I want people not to miss here. You can't see that happening. You don't see the activity. You'll never see it until it goes through the public XRP ledger. And on Ripple website, it says this right on the same page that it talks about these private CBDC ledgers, it says the XRP ledger can be used as a medium of exchange between CBDCs and between any asset. So it's telling you right on Ripple website that the public XRP ledger will be used between CBDCs, even though they're being built on private versions, private networks. You can't see the tokenization. And this is my point, is like the CBDC is the big money. That's the infrastructure layer, and it's all happening on private versions. So we wouldn't see it in these different charts that they're showing, because it's just not going to show. It's a private network. It's private. That's why because central banks want their privacy. So the tokenization that's happening there, it's not rolling out all tomorrow, right? But if you go on a website, Atlantic Council, they show all different CBDCs being built. There's like 99% of the countries right now looking into it or whatever. They have like 6 or 7 launched, 20, maybe 12 or 15 are launching next year or two. So it's, but it's, and then.
So do you think, Jesse, that this is more of a situation of not that the system isn't ready, it's more about that the world isn't ready, and that they've been slowly bringing along the financial system, the global population, because this is a major shift. Imagine if the US dollar just went away. I mean, this would cause disruption and havoc globally. It has to be something that is done very slowly. And to the point of and I think this is a good tweet to kind of explain it, that kind of hits home on this. And this is in reference to Rosie Rios, you know who she is. She's the 43rd treasurer of the U.S. She held office 9 through 16, longest serving Senate confirmed treasury official during the financial crisis, which was a big deal. And her statement was this right here: Ripple is one of the best examples of how to use currency in a substantive and limited or legitimate role to facilitate payments globally. Cryptocurrency is the what, Ripple is the how, and then Ripple is XRP. Her old LinkedIn called her a currency designer. Very interesting things. It's interesting that there's these nuggets out there all over the place that are pointing to this, but yet again, it's the timing.
Well, she's talking about global payments, right? And we talked about this last time, I think, me and you, or the time before. So the Donald Donahue, which was at DCCC, while he was chairman and CEO, or just the year after, but I think it's while he was the CEO or chairman of the DTCC, he literally helped to create the Global Payment Steering Group with Ripple. So Ripple created the Global Payment Steering Group, and Donald Donahue of the DTCC was literally the chairman of the Global Payment Steering Group, which created the global rulebook that RippleNet has, which all the banks and payment providers on RippleNet agree to the global rulebook.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Donahue helped, former CEO, president of DTCC, was there for years, literally helped them to create the global rulebook.
Well, you're going to know pretty soon, because all of this is taking place in 2 months. Yeah, in terms of what's happening with the DTCC.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because the head of DTCC, I forget her name, Nadine Chakar. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm butchering her name. I do apologize. She said right on video, she said that she's not worried about regulations or Clarity Act, stuff like that, because for her, they have clarity from the SEC. The SEC gave them the green light. Right. I was like, she wasn't worried at all. So I was like,
wow. No, it implements in 2 months, so it's going to happen. And when most likely you're going to start to see tokenized securities, as well as everything else, start to occur in one area, all centered around the DTCC. I don't want to dive in too deep. I think we've covered a lot of this in a good spot to kind of give everybody an understanding that there's a lot happening right now around not only regulation, but also just in general with what's going on globally around a potential shift in the financial system. I want to start or kind of end with this section, and that is Ripple IPO. Okay. So you have maybe Garlinghouse. We've been very happily private for a long time. Not exactly a no. So he continues to talk about when people are, why can't he just say no? Why would we? Well, you would think, right? He'd just say no. Why would we? Right?
Yeah. I'm questioning if they're ever going to really do an IPO. I'm wondering if they're not just talking that way to act as a regular private company, because that's what a normal private company would do. But to me, because of the relationship with the IMF, and I might be wrong here, I'm just not sure. Yep. I'm kind of questioning if they would really do it, and if just not show, because Miguel Villa said when he was being interviewed, when he was at Ripple, he said, "What do you guys plan on doing with the escrow?" And he said, for me, I kind of see us as a lender of last resort. You see, the IMF is the lender of last resort, and he said, I think it'd be kind of strange for a private company to be like a lender of last resort, so maybe something would have to change structurally. I don't know, or maybe we could give our escrow to another institution and they would become a lender of last resort. Exactly. So if the escrow is pre-allocated, like I don't know, like would they really do an IPO if they're tied like this?
If it's would they need to if it is pre?
So I don't know if that's just jargon to act as a regular private company, right? When in reality they're really they're working for somebody else. Like,
exactly.
So I'm not sure about that one, Paul.
Listen, we're going to be covering this. Of course, the big meeting today, we'll probably come back on this week and do a breakdown for you guys and all of that. You guys, of course, go out with Jesse on Apex Crypto Insights. You can find him out there on YouTube. Does a great job of breaking down what's happening in this space. Jesse, thanks so much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for bearing with my passion there.
Well, the good thing is I think a lot of our audience understands there's been pushback on this forever. It's not like this is new. We see this all the time. I just wonder, and we've kind of got into this a lot, is there's a lot of things that are pointing to more questions now than answers. So at some point, the timing is going to have to come out for sure. And when it does, You'll get your I told you so moment for sure, and I will hand you the flowers myself.
Nice. I want them physically, not by mail, Paul. I'm coming to get them.
All right, my man. Thanks again for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Take
Such
care.
an honor, man. Thanks so much.